Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. For the word of God is living and powerful, and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to me, division of soul and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and the intents of the heart.
Let me get this light over here so we can see some of the pictures. Well, it is good to be back.
I don't know about that.
Chance really liked it there. He wanted us to leave him, but we told him he ought to come back and give the report first. So,
Yeah.
the Word of God is living and active, and that is so much, so true. We saw it firsthand in the last 2 weeks as it was able to reach into the hearts of many who we preach the gospel to, and for them to accept that gospel. Chance?
Well, I don't know. It was interesting to see, I guess, just the people starving to death for God over there. Mm-hmm. And it was very encouraging to be a part of, the team of men that God chose to go over there and express His gospel to them. It was very exciting for me.
So you might be wondering, what was the total of souls who received and who were obedient to the gospel? Chance, would you like to share that with them?
The number of baptisms we experienced when we were there was 16. And I heard this morning that one more decided to put Christ on in baptism, I guess yesterday.
Yeah, which would have been Sunday.
Which would have been Sunday there. So 17 is the number of new brothers and sisters we have in Mongolia.
Amen.
Thank you.
Well, if you see the picture up there, Luis Camacho put this banner together. It was a picture that we took while we were at BD's Mongolian Grill in Ulaanbaatar. And you'll see those various members of the team that were there. Michael O'Brien, who we call OB, and there's a reason why he goes by OB, and it's because he has been a missionary in China for 20 years. And so the title OB kind of gives them, he flies under the radar of the Chinese government. Brother Gary Aragon, he preaches for the Southwest Church of Christ down in Pueblo. Bill Stewart, whom everyone, he came and did a presentation, even preached for us last year. Luis Camacho, he's in Texas. I can't remember the Sulphur Springs, Texas. He also has he does a
Know the Truth Radio.
Know the Truth Radio. It's all teaching Church of Christ all the way, and it's on the internet. Was it kttr.org or something like that? So, Tom Langley, who is the president of World English Institute, was there with us. He is the gentleman you see kind of in the middle, right beside Chance. And so all these names are kind of going in order, and then obviously Chance and myself. I got to turn this on. This was a map as I presented the mission trip. As you see, where's the laser? It won't show up there anyway. Oh yeah, there's Ulaanbaatar. It's right there. That is the capital of Mongolia. The population is about 1.3 million.
1.3, 1.4.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. And more about that to come. This is a picture that I took while I was on the plane. When you fly overseas on the 777s, they have a little TV screen and you could flip to travel. Well, if you'll notice, you got LA right there, and then Beijing, it's almost directly on the other side of the world. And we were able to fly past the North Pole. And I didn't put the picture up there, but I think it was where we were at, about right there, was 63 below zero. So it was cold, and you could feel it get, because when we started out in LA and started flying, it was warm. And then as you got up to the top, it was getting cold in the airplane. But that was definitely a fun thing. 12 hours, got to Beijing, and my feet couldn't fit in my shoe. They had swollen up. Well, I got stuck on the inside of the seat, and the people there, they didn't speak English. They're sitting next to me, and they fell asleep. So I had to grin and bear it. And this was a picture that I took out the window at the north, when we were up towards the North Pole, and you could see the sun just, the light just coming over the surface of I just thought that was kind of neat. The little ray that you see there is the light on the wing of the plane. Here is
the Chinggis Khan International Airport. It is Chinggis Khan, not Genghis Khan. We're dumb Americans.
And that's the way we were taught in school. Yes. I remember hearing lessons. It was always Genghis Khan. And you'll notice there that there's 2 A's in that name. In the books, you'll only find 1. Now, what does Khan mean, Chance?
Khan, with 2 A's, means great king. Khan, short, 1 A, means king. There were 4 great kings, and everybody after that kind of messed things up, so they're just kings.
So we arrived at the airport there, which it's very, very small airport. And as soon as we come out, Chance had some good news. Well, not really good news. They lost his luggage.
They lost my luggage.
He only had his carry-on.
Which was fortunate because I had all my clothes in there, but nothing else.
So that worked out pretty good. But we come out into this area, right inside those glass doors there, and I'm not kidding. If there was 30, there was 40 cab drivers just ready to pounce on us to give us a ride. Chance, you want to explain the ride?
Cabbies in Ulaanbaatar are different. The same way you would hail a cab in New York, you hold out your hand and the yellow cab pulls up and you get in. Well, you hold your hand out in Ulaanbaatar and a car pulls up. And most of the time, these are just guys who have a car, and they pull up, and you get in, and you tell them where you want to go, and they take you. And I personally love the way they drive in Ulaanbaatar. You kind of take your life in your own hands whenever you get in the car with them. The driving is very different over there, but it is very exciting and makes you feel alive when you're out of the car at your destination.
Never will I complain about the drivers in Denver again. I'm telling you. I've never seen a bus do a U-turn except for in Mongolia.
In the middle of the street.
In the middle of the street. Just did a U-turn right in the middle of the street. And the crosswalks.
It's very interesting. I'm pretty sure nowhere else in the world will you see a 2-lane road 4 wide. This is like NASCAR. Wherever the cars fit, that's where they stay. That's where they go. It's very interesting.
Very, very interesting. So the money system there is different than here. The dollar bill here is worth close to about 2,000 tugrik. And it cost us, we could hail these cabs. See, there was 2 different cabs. There was one that was kind of like the yellow cabs we see here. And then, like Chance pointed out, there was one where, a guy said, you know what, I got extra time. I'm just going to drive around, and if someone needs a ride, I'm going to give them a ride. So you put your hand out there, and they'll pull up, and they'll take you anywhere in the city that you want to go for 2,500 tugrik,
yeah.
Which is
about $1.25.
$1.25. It was really cheap. So we got two taxis here, and we made our way to three. Oh yeah, it took us 3. This is where we stayed. This was an apartment building that we had rented, and our room was about right there.
Top floor. Penthouse apartment.
And they said that this was a very expensive area of town, and there were several others. We looked at it, it was like, man, I didn't think so. But, I mean, there's a little creek right here, a little river. It had garbage in it floating down it. And that was after it had been cleaned up by the students of the college. But just one of the things we saw. So the night we get there, we landed there Saturday about noon. About noon. We were able to go back to our apartment.
Throw our stuff down.
Get cleaned up a little bit, and leave. And we went to, we were going to have the reception at the apartment, which I would say there no way 100 people would have fit in that. No. So that wouldn't have worked out. So instead, we booked the Ulaanbaatar Hotel, and I'm telling you, this was the most elaborate hotel I've ever seen. Their conference room. I mean, right from the detail of the ceilings to curtains, everything.
Nice crown molding.
It was
around
beautiful.
The lights. It was just great.
We had pictures, but somehow they disappeared. 140 registered through World English Institute, and we had a sign-up sheet as you came in, and we had 75 different students who signed in. However, there were about 140 chairs because that's how many they set up. There were about 25 to 30 chairs left. So while the number we say is 75, there probably was about 110 according to OB at this time. And so each of us, after Tom Langley got up and gave his introduction of himself and thanked the students for coming, each one of us were able to get up, introduce ourselves, maybe say a little something about ourselves, and offered for them to come up after we were done to set up a personal one-on-one study. And then at the conclusion, that's what happened. I mean, you've got 140 chairs back like that, one aisle down the middle. We had a podium here and a table over here where all those guys sat at. I didn't move. I stood up, and it was my pages. We each day went from 8 to 8, and I'm not kidding you. It was completely full, and we had. I counted all my studies, and it was 45 studies throughout that time, and we had some who were no-shows. We found something out about the Mongolian people. They would write down their name, and they would do it on every single day, and then they would only show up on a couple of them. So it kind of freed us up because there were certain studies that had to go over. You couldn't just fit it all in 1 hour. So the reception went very well. We invited them all to come to attend a Christian worship, one like we do here in the United States. And that morning we had 43 in attendance, including ourselves, which we thought was a pretty good number, considering none of them are, so to speak, Christians. Some of them believed them to be, but 43. This is OB here, right there, and this is Tumar. Tumar was our interpreter for that first day. And as you'll see, that was the only time we needed an interpreter because Monday came, gospel was being preached one-on-one, and we immediately started having people respond. And so we had interpreters from there on out because they could speak English fairly well. But one of the things that the Mongolian language, it's got a very rough sound. It almost feels like you're going to get spit on. You don't, but it almost does. Bill taught the worship, or preached during our worship, and he went through the gospel message. And we kind of ran with that lesson with all of the students. Made it very simple. We, of course, had singing. There's me leading singing. And then we had the Lord's Supper. These cups here we brought from the church here at Golden. They had an expiration date in June, so the elder said, go ahead and take them. Well, the new congregation that's planted there is using them. So we're pretty excited about that. Now we get to the Bible studies. We'd start asking, okay, where are your beliefs at? We needed to know that. A majority of them were Buddhist. If they weren't Buddhist, they had family members who were Buddhist. I remember one of the ladies that we were studying with, her her husband was Buddhist, and the brothers were shaman. They were priests. We were working on her, and she, to my knowledge, still didn't. I don't know if she was one of the 17. Here Bill and I are studying with, looks like that's Mongolia, which you'll see here in a little bit, a better picture of her. And if you'll notice there in the background, this is the apartment. So we had some couches here, a nice little sectional, and right in here is the kitchen area. There's a dining table. I'm almost positive that that's Gary Aragon doing a Bible study with another. But what you don't see is back here, which you'll see here in a little bit, there's another little room. It's kind of like a balcony, but it's completely enclosed. We had studies going on in there, studies going on in here, studies going on. Actually, there was a time where we had 2 studies going on in here, one over here and the one clear on the other side of the room. So 4 at one time with different students. This is a picture of that last one. So this is Gary doing a Bible study at the table. There's that balcony section, doing another Bible study. She did not obey the gospel. This is Anna. She too, she had some background that was kind of stopping her. Bill's not really striking a pose, but he's making a good point, I'm sure. I went through the whole gospel message. And she said, I want to be baptized. And I was like, oh, yeah. And so I said, well, get a change of clothing, and, we'll work it out. She was supposed to come back the next day and didn't. So this is one that got away. Hopefully, we have her information so she could still be reached. So Bible study, a group study actually. Over at we had 2 different apartments because we couldn't fit in one. So here's a big, large group.
We chose the wrong apartment, by the way.
They had the Ritz. It was nice. This wasn't too bad, but that was really nice. This was a school teacher, and she too did not obey. I mean, and I'll go through some of the scriptures that we talked about. These 3 gentlemen, we'll show them again. We call them Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
That's what happens when you can't pronounce.
You can't pronounce their name, so get through some of this. This is Julie. Some of the women there changed their names. They had a Mongolian name, but they changed it to American name because their dream was to come to America. And that was one of the things. Every taxi that you rode in had American music playing on the radio. Everywhere you went, I mean, they are completely immersed in the American culture. This guy here, we called Bob because we couldn't pronounce his name.
His name, we found out later on, was Dash. Dash. That's real hard.
Yeah, but that was a shortened version. The way that they said it was like that. This is Amore. She had some Buddhist background, and she walked out. Here's Mongolia, and then another study going on there. This was in the second week. And in the second week, we started having the groups come together and teaching them more than just one-on-one, because we wanted them to start, because none of these ladies here knew each other. And none of the students knew each other before we got there. But by the time we left, they had a bond, and I'll introduce them here in a moment. Me and Bill had the opportunity. One of the ladies worked for a place called World Vision. I don't know a whole lot about World Vision, but they are a nonprofit, and they are their whole premise is to find homes for orphans. So they invited us to come to their work and to give a devotional, which we did. And some of you may have seen pictures like this on Facebook. If you didn't, there's more. This is really neat. I should have had this later, but this is
Yamka.
Yamka. She was a blessing. This is the woman who worked at World Vision. She was the CFO or something like that. She was baptized the day before.
She was baptized a half hour before this.
Okay, a half hour, and she is teaching her the gospel. So, wow. Baptism was very challenging. This tub is actually pretty huge. It's a 2-person tub. It's got jets. I mean, it's just like a hot tub. This guy here is 6'4". We call him the human pretzel. Because he was bound up, and as you see, we had one person at the bottom part, and then obviously the one doing the baptizing at the top. But
had to break him in half to get him under.
They made sure he was pushed underneath, and there was no chance. And here's another picture. You can see OB there and Luis. You know, it's like he's lowering him down, but really he's pushing him down. But it was challenging. But this guy was a big guy. And he is, you can see there, he's under. But that tub, that's a different tub at the other apartment. And I love this picture right here. Talk about happy. He was happy. Okay. Now we get to, this is Monk Tour. He was the very first. All these pictures coming up are all members of the church there, now in Mongolia. Monk Tour. This is the 6'4" guy, Ganzarig, Shadrach. Chimidorj, that's Meshach, Mendamar. And the way it looks in English, it doesn't even sound like that. So, I mean, it's very hard, but this is the transliteration of their letters. Then here's Yamka.
She was at our apartment every day.
Every day. Julia too was at the apartment every day. And one of the things we might note, there were so many, I mean, the number of studies, men versus ladies, there were more ladies. And so we had to have a secret...
a security buffer.
A security buffer. There was no man left behind. We had 2 people present in the apartment at all times to make sure that, because one of the things was they wanted to come to America. So they were looking for young, eligible bachelors. Ashina, she was another one of the new Christian. Alstrameg, right? No? She was the one that Nyamka was helping study with. Here's 3 that took place over at the other apartment. I got one of the names. I don't know how to pronounce. Rexenhand. And then these 2, I did not get their names in time for this presentation. I'll let Chance say these.
Okay, well, there's Montoya. She studied with us and with OB and Luis. And there's Salamgo. And I'm not even going to try to know that.
A young girl. Salongo was there when OB went there months before. He met her and was teaching her. And she had been saving contribution from the whole time. So the first day that we had worship, she stuck a whole, and she wasn't even a Christian at that time. She was translating for these 2 during that study. And turns out she got to the end and says, I'd like to be baptized too. So that turned out really good. That's the best that could have done. This is Emma. Emma was the one. Her husband was Buddhist. And that was the fight that we had predominantly with a lot of the people that we talked to, a lot of people that we studied with, was that they were unwilling because of their traditions, because of their family history.
I had several people ask after I'm baptized, can I continue to
worship,
participate in the family's Buddhist traditions?
We said, no. And I showed him chapter 14 where it says you can't. It's either one or the other. And then I wrote here, plus one more soul who was baptized. Well, since I wrote that, which was last night, this morning we have another one. So 17 total baptisms. And towards the end, I will give some of the scriptures that we talked about. Go ahead, Chance.
All right. What you see here in this picture is the traditional Mongolian home. It's what we call a yurt, but they call it a ger. G-E-R, pronounced ger, not ger. That's wrong. This was right across from the, I guess it's kind of the county building.
The district.
The district building. The city is just gigantic. It's massive, and if I had taken a better picture on the plane, we would have put it up there, but the one I have is really sad. So here we are. We went on Saturday. This was our kind of sightseeing trip, and it was amazing. But here we are, the four of us that stayed in the apartment. You have Adam and I, and then Bill and Gary. We went with Nyamka. She took us around, and she's just the greatest. And she brought along her grandfather. Her grandfather's 85 years old, and you see everything he's wearing. He made his own clothes, including his shoes, which was pretty amazing.
He actually beat us up the steps of that monument.
Yeah, he did.
He's in really good shape.
He climbed the Great Wall of China when they went on a tourist trip to China. He climbed the Great Wall, 1,008 steps or something. Yeah, I'm like, I would have been on step 5 going, wait a minute, I got to catch my breath. But here we are standing in front of the ger. This was kind of set up as a restaurant, I think, but this would be a very large ger if you were living in one. I guess, what did they say? They can pack about 8 people in a regular size one, which is about half that size. Yeah. You pretty much just sleep in there. The rest of your time is spent tending the herds and whatever. So,
no running water. These had electricity because they had a drop cord going in there, but
you heat it with a
stove,
wood-burning stove.
Which the pipe came up the middle here, which it's not up there yet because they just opened it.
And there's a tradition that at night you close the flap on the top because it gets cold. But there's a tradition that says if that flap is closed during the daytime, that someone in your family has just passed. And so you know that it's your time as a member of the community to go and console the family.
And inside this particular ger, all the door, all the posts were all hand carved. I think there were some pictures on Facebook that we didn't get on here, but there's more about that. But this outside, how it's decorated, it's got the red. This was done is basically to demonstrate to people what if you had this on your ger, it meant that you were royal or that you owned the property. So it was not typical for the common family to own property. As a matter of fact, they were nomadic, and so they traveled all around. And there's more stories about that we'll share, but we do not have enough time for that. Who's this?
This is the statue of Chinggis Khan's mother. She was the first Kyun of Mongolia. Kyun is a queen. So here is, I don't even remember her name, Chinggis Khan's mother.
Yes, that's what we call her.
And the way she is facing, you can see she's facing a direction. And the way she is facing Chinggis Khan's memorial, his big statue.
And it was said that, because when we arrived here, the woman that when the borders opened up or when they became a democracy, she started a business. She said that they became a democracy 25 years ago. 24 years ago, she started a business, did very well. She sold out of the business, purchased this property, and is building a big hotel on it and all kinds of things where people can come and see. But she told us that the reason that she did this facing was because it was like the mother was waiting for him to come home from battle, which now here's a fire ring. What's so important about this?
This inside of your ger, you would have a very small one of these. This thing was giant. It was 6 or 8 feet across.
It was big, yeah.
But you would have a smaller one of these in your ger, and in the middle you would put a fire, and the fire actually symbolized home. It's kind of that way in a lot of cultures. It's not an actual home until there's a fire burning in your home.
But it also meant that the home was growing and vibrant, and
Right.
It was good. You wouldn't go in there and put garbage or anything into their fire, because that was very disrespectful.
And if you put water on the fire, that means you're ready to go to battle with this particular family. So
if you're ever in Mongolia, don't put out their fire.
yes, they will fight you. Okay, here we are. We're holding, it's cedar branches, dried cedar branches.
This is the woman that was telling us about all this.
And what this symbolizes, if you take the cedar branch and you put it on the fire, it kind of symbolizes your firstborn son,
Yes.
for the most part, will be
Successful.
successful and strong and mighty in his endeavors, whatever he wants to do, kind of thing.
So we both put that on there. So
You should thank your dad, Jacob.
this here,
All right, this is the Chinggis Khan statue. For anybody that really is interested about this, it's 131 meters tall. A meter is like 3 feet and
a little bit
9
more,
inches or
yeah.
so, something like that. So it's pretty gigantic.
you
And
can go
You
ahead.
can walk up the back of the horse, the hind legs of the horse, and then walk out across the horse's neck onto the horse's head. And it has an observatory up there, kind of thing. And that was something to see.
Oh, that wasn't it. I didn't put a picture. We got some pictures up there. It was real funny because we get up to the top. Me and Chance are the first ones up there. Ironic, but we made it up there first. And so we go up to the top part, and he makes it to the top of the steps. I'm ahead of him, and I'm over here looking out over. And I turn around and look, and Mongolian women have flocked around Chance. Take a picture. They thought that he looked like Chinggis Khan. They wanted his picture.
Yeah, it was great. I'm coming up the stairs, and there's about, 4 or 5 older Mongolian women pointing at me and pointing up at the face and pointing at me and pointing up at the face. So I got to pose with about 4 or 5 Mongolian women, and each wanted their picture by themselves and me. Mm-hmm. Not a group picture, no.
No, individual.
So that was pretty exciting. Okay, this was delicious. You have no idea. This is what they called the King's Plate, and this was at the restaurant inside the Chinggis Khan statue.
It was right here, all along the top.
Yeah, the second floor of the building there. And what was on this plate was just a delicious variety of meats. There was mutton, which they eat a lot of mutton over there. There was some beef. There was some horse meat, which was really good. I really liked the horse. And then you see over here, they have 2 sheep kidneys and the 1 sheep heart. Okay? Now, I get that organ meat is not a delicious thing to most people, but I really enjoyed the organ meat. It was delicious. Adam put it
I,
on
on
his
the
tongue
other
and said,
hand, did not. Well, me and Gary were along the same lines, and Gary's like, I don't know about this. Him and Bill just stuck their fork in it and said, it's pretty good. So I was like, okay. I told Gary, I said, Gary, I'll try it if you try it. So Gary sticks the fork in and puts it in his mouth, and he made this weird face. I'm not sticking that whole thing, so I cut off a teeny little sliver,
little piece.
put it on a fork, put it in my mouth, taste it, spit it in a napkin, put it on the table.
I mean, when in Rome, right? But
Hey,
Adam just couldn't do it.
If I was at someone's house and they served this, I would have ate it with a smile on my face. But we bought this meal. So I didn't feel I was obligated. Oh, another thing we learned is that if you accidentally kick someone's feet underneath the table, or at any time for that matter, you have to automatically shake their hand. Because if you did not, it was a declaration of war.
Declaration of war.
And they still hold to that. I mean, I had to have several handshakes.
So Adam spent the rest of the time kicking people's feet, looking for handshakes.
This, the first day that we were there, we stumbled upon this place called the Mexican. It's a Mexican restaurant in Mongolia. And I will tell you, the best Mexican food I've ever had.
Yeah, I'm really upset. The best Mexican place I used to eat at was in Texas. Now it's in Mongolia, 6,000 miles away.
I mean, this is the dessert. I mean, this was a
Tres leches.
Tres leches. And this here is like cinnamon that they sprinkled on the plate, so it made that name and all that stuff. So it was very good presentation, very good to eat. I had no problem eating this.
And the most, we had 6 guys dining at this place, and the 6 of us ate there twice, and the most we ever spent was only $350,000.
Yeah.
That's like $175
For all of us.
all of us.
Okay. Chance? His favorite food.
Favorite food. It's called Herscher. It starts with a K, but you don't pronounce the K. It's called Herscher. And it's pretty much a Hot Pocket stuffed with kind of whatever you want.
Yep.
So I'm making a traditional Herscher, which is made with mutton and onions. See? And you have to crimp it very, very tightly, and it's got to look very nice. Well, my first, dozen or so didn't look that good.
He did a good job because it was good. I really liked it.
And what Adam doesn't have up there is the picture of me actually frying the Herscher. It's basically a dumpling. You can fry it, you can boil it, you can steam it, you can do whatever you want to it. Mm-hmm. So delicious.
And he's offered to cook it for everyone, so.
Yeah, thanks. So be looking at him for the next few agapes. They will only be in limited quantities.
Limited quantities. This here, I told Glenn that we would look this up. This is BD's in Ulaanbaatar. And really, you walk in the door, it looks the same. They have the buffet set up. They've got the big grill, except for they made fire. Do you guys make fire? Man, this thing was huge. It was like, very good. The difference is they had very, very little vegetables. Lots of different kinds of meat, but not as good a selection as what is down here, downtown. Lots. But, so that's the last slide, but we had a lot of, it was a blessing. I was, Luis Camacho, he, I said he had that radio station, and so he had us on there interviewing on the radio station a few times. But every time we'd sit down and study with someone, depending on where they are at, we would always turn to Romans chapter 1. Beginning in verse 16, Paul says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation to everyone who believes, for the Jew first and also for the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith." And what we would do is we'd make a connection between the fact that the power of God to salvation is found in the gospel, and that it is also where the righteousness of God is revealed, and then we'd we contrast that with verses 18 and following where it says, the wrath of God is revealed. So I would take that, and then from there we go to 2 Thessalonians and talk about two different types of people, those that do not know God and those that do not know the gospel. And we'd always end up also in 1 Corinthians 15. I just want to read 1 Corinthians 15, because when they saw this, you know, when you're studying with someone and you see their whole demeanor just completely change, because they realize, I've not done that. And so then you kind of sort of get some excitement from some people, and then the other people you get dread, because there's no way they're going to give up what they got. So in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 1, Paul says, "Moreover, brethren, I declare to you the gospel, which I preached to you, which also you received, which also you stand, by which also you are saved, if you hold fast. That word that which I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For I delivered to you first of all that which I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures. He was buried, and that he was rose again on the third day according to the Scriptures." So we go through the fact of the gospel and how it saved them and how they were receiving it. And we talk about the church in Corinth, and we talk about the church in Rome, and we talk about all these different things. And we'd always, nevertheless, go back to Romans chapter 6 and point out that the gospel, the death, the burial, and resurrection, we are obedient to it when we are immersed into Christ. We're lowered into the grave, and we come up out of the water forgiven into the possession of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So this is our presentation. I think later on this evening we'll kind of open it up for questions. There might be something that we forgot to bring up, or that may be something you're interested in knowing more about. But so we've kind of separated that time for singing and more questions concerning this. We'd like to offer an invitation, though, if there's anyone here this morning that hasn't had the opportunity to be obedient to the gospel. Right there, Paul says the gospel is God's power to salvation. And literally meaning his only power to salvation. There's one gospel. And we had to get that through the Mongolians' mind, that all the things, they heard good news about Buddha. They heard good news about some of the other religious doctrines that they had there. But we had to get them to see there's only one gospel. And gospel, by the way, in Mongolian is San Made. And
good, you said it right.
And as soon as we said it, San Made. Yeah, they knew. Good news. They knew exactly what we were talking about. But they didn't know what it meant. They didn't know it meant the death, the burial, and the resurrection. And how we, when we're lowered in baptism, obey that. So if you've not done that, we want to extend that opportunity to you this morning. Maybe you need prayers. Whatever the need is, now's the time to come as we stand and sing the song of invitation.